Okay, so imagine you stumble across this like 2,000-year-old thank you note, but not for like a birthday gift or something, for an entire life. And that's kind of what we're getting into today with Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, at least the opening chapter.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's not even addressed to anyone in particular.
Really?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting, right? Aurelius wasn't writing this for some audience. It was more like, I don't know, reflections on the people and things that kind of made him who he was.
So almost like we're getting like this raw, unfiltered glimpse into the mind of a Roman emperor. And not like the conquering hero side, but the personal side.
Ah,
Almost like reading his diary.
exactly.
Have you ever like sat down and thought about making a list like this?
Oh, yeah.
Like all the things, big and small, that shaped you.
It's a pretty fascinating exercise.
Yeah.
And Aurelius starts with something I think we can all relate to, at least to some degree, family. He talks about his grandfather, praises his temperament, his self-control. I mean, not qualities you'd usually associate with a powerful Roman family.
Right. It's like he's saying, look, these values, they were instilled in me from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Then he goes on to his dad, who he credits with teaching him modesty, a strong work ethic, and get this, an aversion to luxury. Was that unusual for a Roman emperor?
Oh, very much so. Roman society, I mean, they were obsessed with status and extravagance. So for Aurelius to highlight his father's humility, well, it suggests a conscious rejection of those norms. It makes you wonder if he was making a statement, especially given his position.
It's like, I'm not about all that flash and bling, you know?
Exactly.
And then he goes on to list all these teachers, and this is where things get really colorful.
Oh,
He
yeah.
talks about learning to avoid all these frivolous pursuits. No cheering for chariot teams or getting caught up in the latest philosophical fads.
Right.
It's almost like he's preemptively thanking them for keeping him grounded.
There's this one line that I love where he expresses gratitude for not falling into sophist emulation, which basically means he's thankful he didn't become this pompous, show-off intellectual, more concerned with, sounding clever than actually seeking wisdom.
It makes you wonder what those sophists were like to make him so relieved that he dodged that bullet.
Sure.
But seriously, it speaks volumes about his values. He's not interested in these superficial displays. He's after something deeper.
Exactly. And that's where the influence of Stoic philosophy starts to become clear. Stoicism, well, for those who might not be familiar, it emphasized self-improvement, reason, and duty. It was all about living virtuously, not about, winning arguments or impressing people.
So it's not just what he learned, but what he intentionally avoided that really stands out.
Definitely.
He talks about not attending public schools, skipping the fancy rhetoric training, even choosing not to waste time on certain studies. It's like a thank you for helping him stay focused on his own path.
And that's a really crucial point. It highlights this core Stoic principle to focus on what you can control, your choices, your actions, your thoughts. And, well, let go of the rest. He's thanking those who helped him avoid distractions and stay true to his values.
And it's so counterintuitive, right? I mean, you'd expect a Roman emperor to be all about power and prestige.
You would.
But here he is, expressing gratitude for not pursuing things that, in his time, were probably seen as incredibly advantageous. What do you make of that?
It shows a remarkable level of self-awareness, I think. He's recognizing that even with all his power, he's still susceptible to temptation, to getting caught up in things that ultimately don't matter.
Okay, so buckle up. It gets even more interesting now. Aurelius starts thanking people for seemingly random things, like not falling for, quote, miracle workers. I mean, who hasn't been tempted by a quick fix?
Right. And then there's this line where he expresses gratitude for not getting too deep into certain hobbies, specifically mentioning quail fighting.
Quail fighting.
Yeah, I can't help but chuckle imagining a Roman emperor writing, "I'm glad I didn't become obsessed with quail fighting." So unexpected.
It really humanizes him, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This powerful emperor grappling with the same temptations we all face. It makes you wonder what other hobbies he almost got lost in.
And that's where it gets really insightful, I think. This seemingly lighthearted comment, it actually reveals a profound understanding of his own flaws. He's acknowledging his capacity for getting swept up in things that could lead him astray from his values.
He's not presenting himself as this perfect stoic statue.
No.
He's a real person with real struggles, just trying to live a good life. I think that's something we can all relate to, no matter who we are.
It's interesting, speaking of avoiding these distractions, right? This thank you note takes a real interesting turn when he starts talking about his father's leadership style.
Yeah, because when you think of those Roman emperors, you tend to picture them as, well, pretty tyrannical, right?
Oh, yeah.
Lots of power, big egos, not a lot of humility.
Yeah.
What was it about Aurelius's father that was so different?
He describes him as mild but firm, lacking any vanity, really, and always prioritizing the common good. It's like he's painting this picture of a leader who's more concerned with serving the people than, I don't know, personal glory.
That's so different from how we usually imagine those Roman emperors, right? Draped in purple, throwing these lavish parties, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
Makes you wonder if Aurelius was kind of intentionally contrasting his father's style with all the excesses of those other rulers.
It's definitely possible. He seems to be saying true leadership. It's not about power or displays of wealth. It's about making those thoughtful decisions, being humble, putting the needs of others first.
And you can't help but think, was Aurelius consciously trying to follow in those footsteps? Like, this is the kind of leader I want to be, not some tyrant, but a servant to the people.
It's a really interesting thought, and it kind of ties in with this concept of the what they called the philosopher king, right?
Hmm.
A ruler who embodies wisdom, justice, compassion. Aurelius is often seen as the epitome of this ideal.
So we've got family, teachers, now this really powerful example of leadership. But there's another layer to this list that really struck me. He doesn't just focus on the big stuff,
Yeah.
you know. He's expressing gratitude for these personal victories. Even, like, his own health.
No, absolutely. It adds this layer of vulnerability, don't you think?
Yeah.
He talks about overcoming temptations, maintaining his physical well-being, having a supportive wife, good children. It's like he's acknowledging all those everyday blessings that make life meaningful.
It's almost like he's saying, hey, life's been good, and I don't take any of it for granted. And this, again, it circles back to that Stoic philosophy, accepting what fate throws at you, focusing on what you can control, and finding joy in even the simplest things.
Yeah. It's a powerful reminder that even an emperor, right, with all the power and responsibility that comes with it, they still face those same basic human challenges. And they find meaning in the same fundamental things: family, relationships, personal growth.
Surprisingly down to earth, considering who wrote it. He comes across as very human, very relatable. And I think that's what makes this thank you note so captivating. It gives us this incredibly personal window into the heart and mind of one of history's most, well, intriguing figures. But it also makes you think about your own life, doesn't it? Who are you grateful for? What experiences shaped you? What values do you hold dear?
It's a powerful exercise, taking stock of our own thank you list, because reflecting on those influences, both big and small, it can help us understand who we are and what truly matters to us.
And maybe, just maybe, it can inspire us to live a life that's a little more aligned with those values, a little more intentional, a little more grateful for the journey we're on. So we've really gone through this whole thank you note line by line. And it's pretty amazing how much we've learned about Marcus Aurelius just from it's more than just history. It's like we're getting this glimpse into the making of, well, a leader, a philosopher, a human being.
I know, right? And what really gets me? It's how much of what he's expressing gratitude for really aligns with those core principles of Stoicism.
Right.
The self-control thing, the rejection of all that luxury, focusing on what you can control, it all kind of points back to that philosophy.
And it's not just theory, right? He's actually living it. I mean, come on, he's a Roman emperor, and he's grateful he didn't get obsessed with quail fighting.
Exactly.
It's like a reminder that those Stoic principles, they're not just for these ancient philosophers. They're actually relevant to our lives, too.
Absolutely. Think about it for a second. How much of the stress we feel comes from stuff we just can't control?
A whole lot, yeah.
Right. And how often do we get caught up in those distractions, the ones that pull us away from what really matters?
All the time.
Aurelius's list, it's like this reminder. We have a choice in how we respond to all those challenges.
He's basically saying, hey, focus on your values. Be grateful for what you've got, and don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty powerful message, whether you're an emperor or, well, just trying to get through the day.
It really is. And I think one of the most valuable takeaways from all this, from this whole deep dive, is the power of reflection. I mean, Aurelius, he took the time to think about all the people and experiences that shaped him,
Yeah.
to express gratitude for all of it, good and bad. And by doing that, he got this deeper understanding of himself, and his place in the world.
Makes you wonder, what would happen if we all kind of sat down and did that?
Right.
Wrote our own chapter 1. Who would be on our list? What moments would we highlight? What would it say about us?
Yeah.
About our values, our priorities?
Yeah, it's a really fascinating question. And it might surprise us, what we discover about ourselves. It might even inspire us to make some changes to, I don't know, live a life that's more aligned with what we actually value.
So for everyone listening,
Yeah,
that's your challenge this week.
it is.
Take some time. Think about your own thank you note. You might be surprised by what you find.
You really might.
And if you want to learn more about Marcus Aurelius and all that Stoic philosophy, well, that's a whole other deep dive. But we'll save that for another time.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those gratitude lists coming. You never know what insights you might find.